And we are live.
Woohoo!
Woo! Delta.
Yeah, what's up?
Welcome to Statecraft
What?
series, episode 13.
Yeah, what he
Oh,
said.
13 already.
Yeah, we're 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. 13th. This is
We're
my
gonna be
13th
legal
reason.
one day.
This is my 13th reason.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
So what are we discussing today, boyos?
Well, boys, we are gonna be talking about marijuana.
That dank koosh.
That dank kush.
That stanky stank.
Yeah.
Has anyone here smoked it?
No.
Neither have I.
Really? Oh,
Have
Yeah,
you,
I've
McGuire?
never smoked it.
Have you?
I don't think I'm supposed to confirm or deny, given my job, but yeah, I have.
Ooh,
I know.
you're gonna get fired.
Roommate in college. Okay, well, it was long enough ago. I mean, I don't know. It'd have to stick around in my fat pretty long for that to still show up on a drug test. So
No.
officially.
No, it's gone usually within like 3 months at most.
So, some certain things that they do test for is fat soluble. So if you're putting on a lot of weight while you're smoking and then you're burning weight, a decade later, it could fuck you. But no, I'm fine. Yeah, I don't know. Why haven't you guys partaken?
Don't have a want nor need to.
Yeah, I've
Pussy.
never really cared about getting inebriated like that. Like, I don't know. I don't even really like even when I was in college, I didn't get drunk all that much. I'd only get drunk occasionally, and it didn't take me much to get drunk. And I don't know, I just
Really?
didn't like the feeling of it. So I was like, if I don't like the feeling of this, am I gonna like the feeling of weed and stuff? And I've been on like opiate painkillers before, and that made me feel weird too. So
Okay. But I think we're all in.
No, I think this.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think we're all in agreement on overall drugs being legalized.
yeah, I think drugs need to. If you're an adult, you should be able to do what you want, as long as you don't kill anyone else. Now, if you go and drunk drive and kill somebody,
As long as you're a consenting adult and you're not putting anyone else in harm's way, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Very reasonable. Yep.
So you were saying in the before we did this, the green room, so to speak, that they're going to reclassify marijuana. I hadn't heard of this.
Yeah, so Biden is trying to get something passed within the Congress and stuff, the Senate and the House, in regards to reclassifying marijuana on the same level as like Tylenol with codeine in it, and then like basically like fully medically prescribed legal that kind of legalization, instead of it being class
Schedule
1.
three, I think it is.
Instead of it being class 1, which is heroin, cocaine, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like the worst. Which it's funny because, like, I mean, we've all been around people who've smoked pot, and it is like, I don't know if you guys have seen people on heroin or fentanyl or anything, but like, pot is nothing like that at all.
Yeah. In fact, the worst thing that drug that currently exists in the U.S. is alcohol, and that's fully legalized, basically. So
Caffeine's pretty freaking intense too. Like, a lot of people OD on caffeine.
yeah,
Or not OD, but they
But,
abuse
like,
it to the point where it actually like impacts their health in a very negative way.
out of most like drugs and stuff, alcohol is like one of the few that just makes you angry for the most part. It like the way it messes their brain. But like weed, it just mellows you out. The only reason why it's illegal is because of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, and reefer madness. And the thing about alcohol and caffeine is that people will go to the bar, have a couple drinks, drive home, run over a kid, do stuff like that. So just in a damages, alcohol is pretty high. But like I was saying earlier with caffeine has like people abuse. Like we have a caffeine abuse crisis in America. Like the kids I work with at school, like they'll drink like 3 or 4 energy drinks a day, and they're like freaking 12 years old, and it's like that's so damaging to your health and mental health and long term and all that. It's like,
But it's legalized.
Jesus.
No one cares. That's the problem. No one cares about it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first time I ever heard a big hoopla about caffeine specifically in public discourse was if you guys remember a few months back, Panera Bread
Oh yeah,
with
charged
their
lemonades.
lemonades. Did you
Charged
guys hear
lemonade.
about that?
Yeah, the charged
Yep,
lemonades.
yep.
People are having
They
heart
killed the
attacks.
Yep. All of them were people who had underlying heart conditions, but
Yeah.
it was still because Panera
Yeah,
doesn't label it like at
yeah.
all. It's hilarious. I can
No
pull up
one
the
knew it was
photos here, but in their
caffeinated.
stores they don't mark anywhere.
Yeah, no one knows
Right,
caffeinated, and
exactly.
it
So
had more
and it's not
caffeine than
just
energy
caffeinated. It's
drinks.
like
Yeah,
right. It was like 400 milligrams per
Jesus
serving, and
Christ.
exactly these kids were drinking literally unironically like 700 milligrams because a serving was like half a normal cup that you'd get at Panera, right?
and
Because
people had
we're
multiple.
Americans are
Yeah,
fat, so
If
exactly.
if I'm going to race, like when I go running or something, and I'm gonna race, I might drink an energy drink like a couple hours before to like kind of jits me up and stuff, and that makes me like really shaky and like I couldn't imagine drinking like a 400 milligram, one of those, let alone like two or three, which I know like
yeah.
some of those people were doing
So
too.
I looked it up. Panera's charged lemonade
Absolutely.
had 237 milligrams of caffeine, and the FDA for an adult recommends 400 is safe per day. And people were drinking like 2, 3 of
Okay.
these, like in one sitting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
And
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't caffeine like almost as addictive as cocaine too? Because it hits very similar
I don't know.
receptors and
I
things
don't
like
quite know
that.
about that. Uh,
I
is
say this as I'm drinking a cup of coffee, but it's just a cup of plain black coffee. So
as
I
cocaine?
know a lot of substances are like deceptively addictive. Like sugar is more addictive than cocaine, for example. And like that
yeah.
makes sense, right? Biologically, we need sugar to survive, right? That's
Well,
fuel.
and
But
and human beings were, the ones who survived were the ones who found sugar. So, sugar
right.
is sweet and the body craves sugar. And sugar was rare when humans were surviving back then. So of course, humans are
Mhm.
going to have an addiction to sugar inherently. So
Right off the
No,
cuff,
and
oh,
that's
sorry.
no. Go ahead. You're
I
good.
was just saying right off the cuff. I don't see anything in regards to it being as addictive, but they do hit they both do cause like a dopamine rush within the brain. So
yeah,
Well, they're derived from the same plants and everything too, so it makes sense.
no
But
cocaine and caffeine. No,
no, caffeine comes from
I thought they were.
several different
yeah,
places.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and it's
Okay.
also chocolate and cocaine are not related either. I had to tell my kids because they're like, you can make cocaine from chocolate, and I'm like, no,
No.
the chocolate comes from the cacao nut, and uh, cocaine comes from the coca leaves. Completely different plants.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes
One
sense.
lives in the jungle, one lives on the side of mountains.
Right. Right.
And I got one of them in my
So
backyard. I'm not saying which.
the frickin' DEA is gonna kick in your door and shoot your dog
What dog?
or your cat. Same difference.
I
It's
don't know.
coming right at me. Anyways, but to take this back to marijuana, it is hilarious that marijuana has had like such it's been classified and labeled as what it has been for so long. Like
Yeah, class one. Yeah,
what's hilarious is
schedule one.
yeah, well, and what's funny is that like the America was founded by like people who grew a little bit of pot, mostly hemp, but like George Washington did grow pot leaves, and he was known for smoking the ganja every now and then and things like that, and nobody thought it was that big of a deal. Of course, the plants back then were not nearly as strong as they are today. Like the plants that we have today have been purposely bred to have an incredible amount of THC. So like it's not like George Washington was sitting there and getting stoned out of his mind. Like he might get a little bit of a buzz, in the back of his head, but
Yeah.
it wasn't anything like today. But like it's hilarious that, the plant that the founders were smoking basically was, one of the worst drugs you could possess and, use for the longest time.
Hmm. It's funny too. There's this big stigma around marijuana, but um nowadays a lot of people are consuming the cartridges now, right? And
Yeah.
like the concentrations on those are so much higher, and it's a legitimate health concern. There's medical literature supporting that modern THC cartridges have such high concentrations that they can cause schizophrenia. It's a psychological effect of I guess abuse of marijuana, or THC specifically. But
Yeah.
there's no talk about that. You know, we've lived in this paradigm of like anti-pot for so long, but when something, you know, marijuana derivative comes along that's an actual health concern, nobody cares. It's kind of funny. I
Yeah,
think it
I
kind of speaks to a lot of the racial undertones. I think is part of what brought about regulation in the first place, the association with Mexicans. But anyways, go ahead, Delta.
yeah, I do agree. Like I have known many stoners in my time, and they all say the same thing, which is, oh, pot does nothing to you. There's no negative health effects, and I'm not too sure about that, which is one of the reasons why I never smoked it, because I
Mhm.
kind of treated it like cigarettes, because if cigarettes cause lung damage, of course smoking marijuana is probably going to be doing something similar, maybe not to the extreme degree, but
Mhm.
I think we should do clinical tests and see what settle the debate on whether you know smoking
Yeah.
marijuana does
Well,
do lung damage, how it affects your circulation, your brain, all that
yeah.
stuff.
Well, smoking, like, and inhaling any kind of smoke is generally not good. To the effect, it can vary, of course, but generally,
Yeah.
inhaling smoke is always a bad thing.
So
Yeah.
actually, I wrote a couple of reports on this a while back that the VA has done a lot of research into marijuana for PTSD treatment,
Mhm.
and it is associated. Like, they don't have long term studies, so obviously there's not a lot of long term looks into lung impacts, but it is associated with acute uh, inflammation of the lungs, but to a much lesser degree than cigarettes
Yeah,
and other
Yeah.
smoked products, because there's not a lot of the tars that are associated with cigarettes.
and I'm sure
In
vapes
just
have
a blunt.
less. Vapes also do less damage than cigarettes, but they're also damaging in other kinds of ways. But
Yeah,
Right.
well, and I'm not saying that, like, smoking a blunt is anything like smoking a cigarette or anything, or
Mhm.
that we should regulate it based on the damage does to the individual. Like,
No,
like
absolutely.
we said at the top, I don't care. I'm probably not going to smoke pot even if it is legalized anyways. But like, and it's partly because I don't want to deal with any potential long-term health effects. Now, maybe trying it one time won't hurt. Like, I've smoked a couple cigarettes and
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to get lung cancer from that, but I'm not going to be
Mhm.
a chronic user or anything if I ever do.
yeah,
So,
No, absolutely.
okay.
So I guess to that effect, it's interesting that the legislation is going through now. Um, when did states start passing recreational legalization? I think
Oh,
right around
that's
Colorado,
20.
that's been
Colorado was like 2013 or
yeah,
2011, and then Oregon was
Mhm.
like 2013.
yeah.
So it
It's
went Colorado, then
but
Oregon.
the movement's been going around for decades now. It's just now the states and representatives are actually finally doing something about that push. And isn't it
Yeah,
most states at least have medical use legalized, right?
Yeah,
I think
and it's
34.
in most states where it's medical, it's so easy to get a prescription for it.
Yeah.
I think in my freshman year roommate in college, he took, I think, 3 minutes to get a permit in California. We weren't in California. They have doctors, quote unquote doctors, that you can log onto a website with, and in 3 minutes say, I have sleep deprivation issues. I need weed to help me sleep, and then they'll give you a permit right there. So it is pretty funny. Uh, how little of a barrier to entry that is. But
Yeah, even in
Yeah, well, and you shouldn't have to hunt.
go ahead. You shouldn't have to
I was just
hunt.
gonna say you shouldn't even have to hunt for it.
Yeah.
Like it should
Mhm.
just be legal. Like I mean, I like when they passed it, when they decriminalized in Oregon, I do hate that, like, now everywhere you go you do smell weed somewhere in the background. It is kind of annoying, and I hate, because I live in a college town. There's always people smoking all around, but
Yeah.
like,
But
it is what it
as
is.
time goes on, I'm sure that it'll become less popular. More people will probably just do it at home or whatever and not really in public.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I said, a
Maddie.
lot of the kids nowadays are using the
Depends.
cartridges, which
Yeah.
don't have. Yeah,
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have Maddie here. She's one of the biggest stoners I know. So
I was in class with one. When I was in my college, I passed, by the way. I got an A in my political class.
oh man,
Yeah,
I mean,
American
good for
government.
you.
American
I didn't see
government.
that one
Ooh,
coming.
yeah, of course.
That's
Did you
crazy.
advertise the podcast and discussions?
No.
Wait. On your note card, wait. On your note card, you should just put a link, a link to one of our podcasts, and been like,
I have his
"Hey, I need
email.
to use my phone because you should just do it."
I have his email. I'll just
Send it
email
to
like
him. No balls.
I'll email him the fucking YouTube and Twitch.
One
Invite
of
him as a
my
guest.
Invite
one
him.
of my
No,
one of my
no, fuck
philosophy
no,
professor.
fuck no.
Why?
Hyper conservative. Super bad faith. I love the.
Base.
I like the guy. I love. He was a
I'm just
great
kidding.
teacher, but he
That's why we need to have him in.
because
Change his mind.
I told him some of the stuff that you had told me. Oh yeah, you and him would have big disagreements on American government.
Who,
Because
me?
yeah, you and him would
Who, me?
definitely you Delta. Because you're like, oh, the
I'm
president basically
sure.
has full power over everything. It's like no. He told me in class that the president has no power whatsoever.
Okay. Oh fucking K.
I'll give you his email.
My fucking do it. Text it to me. I'll fucking destroy him. Like this guy does not like. This guy has read he's like the American government functions based on how the Constitution functions, and I'm like, oh,
Well,
no,
no,
fuck that.
you
That is
see,
not how
the
it
weird
works.
thing is that he disagrees with that. He says, "Here's how the government's supposed to function, and here's how it actually functions," and he still said the president has no power.
That I mean,
And then
so he said, wait. Is the Congress the one that has the power?
he said the
Is that what he
president.
said?
He said the president has all the power. Well, he said the president has no
Who, me
power.
or him?
Sorry. He said the only like the states have the most power in regards to everything.
No, and I will cite when they changed the drinking age to 21. All the others, the federal government threatened to pull highway funding from any state that didn't change the drinking age to 21, and that's why we have a national drinking age as 21. No, there was no, and that was not an act of Congress. That was the fucking NTSB that
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah, no,
God bless
I'll give you
So
his email
like the
and
president has an absurd amount of power.
I'll give you his. You know what I'm gonna do. I'll even I'll
What?
email him your schizo website, thelostmuse.net.
Fucking do it.
I'll email him the
Fucking do it.
podcast, and then I'll email him that, and then I'll give you. I'll email.
Email him the one about the imperial. It's called the imperial presidency, because if he is saying that the president has like no power, he needs to read that shit, because goddamn, the president is like a goddamn dictator at this point.
And he even asked the class. So it was like, all right, which branch of government has the most power? And I raised the federal, or like I raised basically the presidency, the executive, I think it was, and
So you agree with me?
I partially, yeah. You've kind of swayed me a little bit on that.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I don't think he has as much power as
okay.
you're saying, but probably a little more than the other branches because of
Well,
Judiciary.
everything
well,
going on.
Well, so what do you mean? What do you mean he doesn't have as much power? Like he himself, or do you have like a more nuanced opinion where it's his bureaus, like who he puts in charge of the bureaus that are important?
So
Because I
like
agree with that too.
so like the president himself doesn't have full unilateral power. However, with the different departments and everything, there's so many different departments. The FBI, the CIA, etc. All these that are under him. They in a sense have full control over anything that goes on in the U.S., including the other branches.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I agree with that. And the other thing is the president only has the power that he has today because the Congress hasn't checked him. Because the Congress is the hard check against the president. The Congress controls the spending, and Congress controls what's legal and what isn't. And also Congress can remove the president and charge him with whatever, as we
Sure.
saw with Trump and things like that.
Yeah.
And the Congress, the legislative branch, hasn't done that since. I mean, it almost did that under Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
and before Trump, I mean,
Yeah.
Trump kind of throws everything out the window. But they almost did that under Nixon, but not really. And then I can't even name the last president. I mean, maybe Grant is the last one where they actually did anything. And then before that, it was Andrew Johnson, where they checked the power of the president. But like the
The big
Congress
thing.
doesn't check. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to interject. I think with Nixon, the big thing that comes to mind that I think is the last really landmark congressional thing was the War Powers Resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, they went as far as to override Nixon's veto too, which is pretty impressive. But like that was 50 years ago.
That's
Just
what I'm saying.
yeah. So exactly. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason why I say the president is so powerful is because all Congress does, literally all Congress does, and especially the last 20 years, is pass spending bills. That's all they do. They don't pass laws. They don't check the president. They don't check the fucking judiciary either. They don't check the goddamn um SCOTUS or anything. They don't do that. All they do is pass spending bills. That's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Like,
it it just surprises me that he could unironically say that.
Well, and it's funny is that he
yeah.
runs in a college course on American government. So
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's hilarious because you want to know how here's my chief argument without having to explain everything I explained
mhm.
about my whole spiel. I can explain why the president is the most powerful branch of the government in basically one sentence with a single question. Which election is the most paid attention to in American politics?
The federal, yeah, the presidency.
The president. The presidential election is the only one that anyone really ever cares about, and everything else is like, eh.
Yeah, like no one cares about
Mhm.
their state, local elections. Who runs the like teachers boards? Who's their mayor, governor, etc. No one cares about that stuff. Everything's like, all right, who's the
Yeah,
president of the United States? Who is it? Oh, it's Barack Obama. Okay, cool. I like him or I don't
most
like him.
people most people could not name their county sheriff or their police department chief.
Yeah, and
They just couldn't. And most people probably couldn't even name like their local whatever city or county representative is
yeah,
for their
Mhm.
like local,
and most
boards.
people determine how the country functions not based off of their local stuff, but rather who's the president. If it's someone they like, they say the economy or whatever's going fantastic, and vice versa.
Yep.
If it's someone they don't like,
Yeah.
I did that stickers. Biden personally responsible for gas prices. Yep.
when he has no
Yeah,
control over
and,
gas
and
prices.
Mhm.
yeah, and so it just boggles my mind that anyone could unironically think, "Oh, the president isn't that powerful." It's the only election anyone cares about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So
Eh,
yeah, send me his contact info. I'm gonna destroy him. I'm gonna mount his PhD on my wall. So, anyways, back to marijuana.
legalize and regulate on
Yep.
an open
The
market, just straight up. Yeah,
So you say regulate. What do you mean by regulate? Like, how would you regulate
like
marijuana?
probably like how we regulate probably alcohol. Like it's pretty lax overall, but like you need a license to sell it. You can't sell it to minors, obviously. But if you want to make it slash grow it at home, you are free to do that. You just can't sell it without a permit. I think marijuana should be the same thing, right? You should be able to make it at home, but you need a permit to sell it, and you can't sell it to minors.
Dang, coal miners in West Virginia are gonna revolt against you.
And they can suck my dick. I hope they get the black
well,
lung.
luckily for Sonic, they can't read they can't read the bill, so
They can
they'll
hardly.
be okay.
Damn,
They
damn.
they can't even breathe anyways. Fucking black lung.
Yeah. Why do you need to smoke marijuana, guys? We're gonna regulate it for you. You can't breathe anyways. We're just helping you.
Yeah, like I think is that would you say that's pretty fair or like those kind of regulations?
Well, I'm very anti-regulation, but
Sure.
maybe as a stepping stone to make it fully legal. Like,
Yeah. Although
I'm literally someone.
I'd say the
So,
same with all drugs. So yeah, I like don't sell to minors. You can make it, grow it at home, whatever, and you need a permit to sell it for all drugs.
well, okay, so I'm gonna say the cringe libertarian thing that like lost Gary Johnson the well, he never had a chance, but
Yeah.
like the reason why libertarians are a joke, and that is like when people say you wouldn't sell marijuana to a minor, and it's like, well, I mean, their parents are responsible for them, so if
Mhm.
their parents aren't, looking out for them, that's their problem.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
why should we have to make sure?
like
Why should
I mean
I have to
the
parent someone else's
parents
kid for them?
the parents can buy it and then they can give it to the kids, but I don't think the kids. Well, if they have the means, because most kids don't even have the means to buy anything. Um, but if they did, they should probably spend it responsibly and not on drugs or booze.
Yeah, but okay, but that what I'm saying is fair. If but I don't think that it should be the government that regulates that. That should be up to the parents, and the parents should be the ones monitoring their kids. I'm really tired of us building a society where we have to parent other people's kids for them. If parents don't know what their kids are doing, that's their problem. That's not my problem.
Well, it's still not your problem if you can't. Excuse me, if you can't sell them something, right? It's really not
Well, okay,
your
so
problem.
what if as a parent, well, what if as a parent I don't care if my kids go out and smoke pot, and
Then you can buy it
I'm
for
fine
them.
with them going to the pot store and buy.
You can buy
But
it
what
for
if I
them.
don't want to? What if I don't care? What if I don't want to do it for them? Like like,
They'll
what if
find
I'm
someone
someone who's like,
else.
it's their
They'll
responsibility?
find someone else to do it then.
I guess.
The guy outside
I
of the
mean,
liquor
fair.
store.
I mean, fair. But I think that like if parents want to allow their kids to be responsible for themselves at that level, we shouldn't like we as a society shouldn't stop them. And I don't just mean this with like smoking marijuana, but like it should be the same with like getting a job. Like if a 10-year-old wants to get a job, like go work at like wherever.
Put the kids back in the mines.
Well, I'm not. I mean, listen,
I do need me
listen.
a chimney
Anyways,
sweep.
but
I need me a chimney sweep. They got the small
Their small
hands.
hands
son, I'm
handle
gonna
the
send you
They're
to
knife, I know.
England. I'm gonna send you to England for 3 years. You better come back with an English accent so you can be a proper chimney sweep.
Uh,
But I mean,
their tiny
but my
hands
point
can
is
fit
that
in the
like,
machinery.
yeah. But I mean, my point is that like that I understand why we have that regulation, but like it's all up to the parent. Like I don't think parents should have to affirmatively say yes, my kid is able to do this. It should be up to the parent to say no, you're not allowed to do this. I'm going to stop you from doing it.
I guess
I agree on principle, but I think. Oh, go ahead.
well, this is where me and Delta tend to disagree because I do believe in some regulations on the market, while he believes in none whatsoever.
Well, I do believe in some. Like I don't believe like anything pedophile related is okay, but
I'm
that's a
sure,
different
but
discussion.
that I wouldn't.
Well, that should be on the parents to enforce for
Oh
their
God,
children.
no.
What if the parent wants to hoe their
Delta's
child
all
out?
about parental choice.
What if the parent wants
Jesus
what
Christ,
the,
never
what,
mind. Never mind. You're right. You're right.
No, so
the
I
child
think
is
I
my
agree in
property. I can do
principle and
whatever I
limiting
want with it.
regulation.
Well, I think of a child like a dog, where it's a dog isn't. I mean, I guess technically it is property, but like
Hey,
you
Delta.
you you can't abuse a dog either.
Furries exist.
Mhm.
Furries exist.
I know.
Fur-
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, feet first in the wood chipper.
Just as a side note, whenever I go skiing now, you see a lot of guys in fursuits
Yeah,
bombing down the mountain.
yeah.
Really?
They tend to be snowboarders too for some reason.
It's easier to
It's
get
really weird.
it's
That
easier
makes
to get
sense.
their footsies in there.
Oh,
It's easier for them to yiff.
no boy.
They're already sideways.
Delta, do you consume a lot of Yif?
He's a yiff connoisseur.
Anyways, but yeah, I don't know. I understand why those regulations exist, and
Yeah,
maybe my ideal utopia will never exist, but like those are my ideals. If kids want to smoke marijuana, I don't think we should stop them from
I'm
doing
sure.
it. That's
I'm
between
sure.
them and their
In
parents.
regards to that the regulation I stated, on terms of priority, that's like one of the bottom ones. Like it's not that really important compared to these other issues, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, okay, so my issue lies with that people are fundamentally self-interested, right? In an ideal world, right, everybody's good and they won't abuse these systems and
mhm,
so on. But um, this is where I think regulation has to be realistic. There are going to be people who maliciously try to peddle, drugs towards people, children who can't make an informed decision, who biologically can't, right? I mean, it's a fact they're not psychologically developed, and so if you open the door towards, kids buying illicit substances, that's fine, but I think well, okay, I'm phrasing this badly, but I think you're opening the door towards people aggressively pursuing children who can't necessarily make those decisions on their own. And we can say parents should be good and should parent and whatever, but the fact is, not all parents are good. Some parents are bad, and I don't think a child who lacks the mental faculties to make a decision like, hey, maybe smoking is bad for my lungs, so I should think about my life 60 years down the road when I'm dying of cancer. Maybe I shouldn't smoke. I don't think a kid should, have to contemplate that because they don't have the ability to, simply
yeah,
because their parents are absent and aren't, actively partaking. So I do think that there is room for regulation as protections like that. In the same way, I think that there's room for regulations as, food protection, right? I mean, we can say, oh, you should be able to buy unpasteurized milk. Oh, people can make their own nutritional decisions, but the historical record shows that when you don't regulate the food industry, you get human fingers in your cans of meat, right? I mean,
yeah,
Well, I paid extra
there's
for that.
right. There's a happy medium of recognizing that, yeah, there's this idealized world where we're free to do what we want to do and we're not bound by these regulations. But then there's also a point of being realistic and saying, okay, well, people are self-interested. So if you take away some of these barriers, they're going to aggressively pursue people who don't have the ability to protect themselves and don't have individuals there to protect them, right? Um, and then I think that's a point where limiting freedoms to a degree with these regulations is worthwhile, just because, again, so many people get hurt historically when we take away those shields.
yeah,
Well, so the food thing is a different
Mhm.
discussion and an interesting one. So if someone would like to put that in the topics, maybe if we
Oh,
don't
I'll
get to
drop
it
it in
today, we
right
can
now.
go somewhere.
yeah.
We
Go
can
ahead.
discuss
Yeah,
that some other time. But just in general, to get back to the original thing you were saying about people pushing marijuana to kids who can't, biologically consent and things like that. I would just like to say we've been living in that reality already for for decades. I mean,
Mhm.
literally forever, but for decades. So and marijuana was as we said earlier, it was a Schedule 1 drug. Same as
Mhm.
heroin and all that stuff. So I don't really see how that would change anything necessarily, other than marijuana becomes more uh, it becomes more readily available on the street, and thus easier for kids to get a hold of, because now it's legal, and so now it's more out in the public and it's more socially acceptable to smoke it and things like that. So um
that's why.
again, this it all comes down to the parents. Like I'm gonna just tell a quick story. Like I've been saying recently, I work at a school, and I, I'm gonna be honest with you. There are just a lot of parents that just aren't there. They're like,
Mhm,
I don't
Mhm.
know what their deal is, but their kids are out of control because they're just not there. And I don't want to make this an issue about like school and stuff, but like it's very clear to me that like parents just aren't parenting anymore, and like
Mhm.
they just need to. And I don't see how regulating anything will be effective if parents aren't parenting. Like parents need to be involved if you want regulation to work.
I think it's more so about making sure. Obviously, there's a point, right? Teenagers have been smoking for forever. They've been, having sex when sodomy's illegal.
Yeah.
They've been doing whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. But I think closing the door, specifically for younger children who maybe lack the ability, who still obviously lack the mental ability to consider these actions and consider the dangers, but at the same time lack the I guess liberty. I don't know how to phrase it, but the ability, how would you put it? I don't know, the self awareness to go out and acquire these things through other means. I
Yeah.
think it's about protecting those subgroups a little bit more than, you know, the teenagers who historically have consumed, right?
Sure.
It's about putting up a hard barrier specifically at younger ages. I don't I understand that there's a limit where things stop working, but I want to still, you know, see some sort of protection in place for those younger audiences.
Sure.
And
I'm not disagreeing, and I'm not disagreeing with just 1 second, Sonic, and I'll let you
okay.
go. I'm not disagreeing with like what you're
Mhm,
saying. I think you have a good faith. I think you have a good good intentions behind
mhm,
what you want to do. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you can't use regulation to replace the responsibility that parents have. And in fact, I would argue regulation is only effective when parents are involved. And the problem is right now, not just with marijuana, but in general, we kind of have a society that like parents make children and then they're just like, all right, well, I guess it is the responsibility of all of society to help me parent my children. So I'm just gonna go do whatever I want while I send my kids to school and I don't know what's going on and they're smoking pot and whatever. And it's like, no, you need to be involved. So like maybe I would be more okay with regulation if parents were more involved with their children, but they aren't. Anyways, go ahead, Sonic.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that when we enacted prohibition, you saw street booze, right? You saw the street booze everywhere, right? Um, Louisiana was like
mhm.
really bad for this, especially. And then once the 21st Amendment came around to get rid of prohibition, you saw like no more street booze. Like I don't know, I've never seen it, and I don't hear about it. People selling booze without a license out on the street to whoever wants to buy it
Oh,
illegally
it,
or
it
whatever.
happens.
It
It
happened,
happens.
sure, but like you don't really
Mhm.
hear about it, right? Versus illegal drugs, right? Marijuana, heroin, cocaine. You these things are a lot. These markets, these black markets, these street
Well,
markets are a lot bigger. If you legalize and regulate, you see a decrease in these markets because people have an easier access to it in a well, good like pharmaceutical or whatever way, right? Regulated, they can trust it a lot more than the street stuff, so they're more likely to buy that, and then thus decreasing those black markets and even destroying cartels and stuff. Which then it by legalizing it and regulating it on the market, you end up hurting these other things that are actually bad and hurt us.
well, nobody is killing each other over selling street booze right now. Like, because that's the main problem is that like people are literally murdering each other over drugs
Well,
and
it's
all
not
that
even
stuff.
just that,
So
because like
Mhm.
you're even with street drugs, even street marijuana, people can put in anything they want, and you have no way of actually knowing
yeah,
until after you've consumed the product. In which case, then you can get severely ill, then go to the hospital. If you even go to the hospital, because then you can feel like, oh, I'm going to go to jail now because I consumed this illegal product. So then people die because it's illegal. So legalizing and regulating can make sure that it is safe for consumption, that people can go to the hospital if they feel any adverse side effects or anything like that. People are more likely to seek help. um, Regulations aren't necessarily bad. They can put trust into something that may not already be there.
eh, I don't know. I'm less hot on that stuff. Like, for example, so pills you buy at the store, they may be. It's not too big of a deal because, like, for example, ibuprofen or whatever you
Mhm.
buy at the store, it's regulated by the FDA, but it might be contaminated with other drugs. Now, they're not. They're never going to be contaminated with like prescription drugs like opiates or anything. But like, you could take um you could take ibuprofen that it was made in the same machine that so ibuprofen and acetaminophen, they're two different, one's an NSAID and one isn't, and they do basically the same thing, but they have two different ways of doing it. And so you might take some ibuprofen that it's not contaminated enough to you could test it and you could see that it has maybe a little bit of acetaminophen
Some traces,
contamination on it,
sure,
but like
but
yeah, there's some traces on it, but
you're not getting
those
like an
those
entire
traces will have
pill
a
or
very
something.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that, your body, this is the worst thing for your body, but it will have at some level some measurable effect on your body, and that is, in theory regulated by the FDA.
Yeah,
And it's because the FDA says, yeah, that level of contamination is okay and it's safe, and
sure. Like
it's fine or whatever. But
they
like
allow a
just
certain
just
amount
my
of
my
hairs and
point,
stuff, but or insect
yeah,
parts.
and
But
my point though is that like regulation is not like it doesn't you said it best. It creates, it's just trust. That's all it is. It doesn't. I don't think regulation does as much as we think it does.
okay,
Well, you don't
Other
have to
than
worry
trust,
about fentanyl in your
and your ibuprofen or anything
aspirin.
like
That
that.
that
Yeah.
is
maybe. Although
right. That's,
although if you do like so I don't know if this is necessarily the case with over the counter drugs, but like I know that with prescription drugs that if you have a bad reaction, it's really hard to sue the pharmaceutical companies over it. So
Well, sure. I
right.
mean, you don't.
There's a lot of waivers and yeah.
Well, yeah. Also, one of the problems is that you don't know you're gonna have an adverse side effect until after you've taken it, and then from then, that's when you go to your doctor and be like, "Hey, this happened. Can I please be put on something else?" And then they usually say, "Sure." But you can't really sue someone for something because you didn't know the side effect of that thing.
maybe, but I don't know. I listen. I agree, but well, kind of. I mean, I think you should be able to sue anyone. I think you should be able
Well,
to
you can
sue for
sue.
damages,
I
and
mean, you can
Oh,
sue, but you're not
Delta's a
gonna
real
win.
American.
I mean, yeah, you can sue for anything. It's just you won't win most likely.
no, actually, a
Well,
lot
no,
of a lot of drugs, a lot of drugs, you cannot. It's not legal for you to sue. If you try to take it to court, they just won't let you. You can't even take your case to court.
part of the liability you sign with prescriptions and all that is like a lot of times you'll agree to arbitrate instead of a
Yeah,
lawsuit. That's a big thing.
yeah, and the
Um,
arbitration isn't just in a county or a court that it's in an area where the judge is favorable to them usually because
don't
they
they
have some
normally
ties to the
do like
judge.
third party, like literally a paid firm or something? Like it's some sketchy BS that
That
yeah.
too, but there's also like there's the non like there's the EULA agreements that a lot of like Discord
Mm-hmm.
has where if you try to sue them, you have to sue them in this specific city in San Francisco because
Hmm.
there's a judge there that's favorable to Discord and things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, and drug companies have a similar thing too. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they do also have like you have to arbitrate using this third party firm,
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Right. And all that's disagree. I mean, theoretically, you're consenting to it, but when you have this life-saving medication or something, especially you can get down the rabbit hole with that. But there's situations where I think your ability to consent to that is somewhat lessened. You're biologically coerced into signing away the accountability of another company. I disagree with that wholly. But I don't think that's necessarily a reflection on regulations so much as it is a reflection on just the general failures of our contract law system and uh, sort of how far legislation has gone to protect corporations, which starts to get into bigger problems that's maybe outside of the scope of
Yeah.
this. But
Well, I mean, I think the biggest, I don't know how much you guys know about like the fentanyl crisis and things like that, but
mhm.
like it is a big problem. Like it's a massive problem, and it is being driven largely because prescription opiates are just handed out like candy. Like I had a surgery on my chest to get rid of a melanoma on my chest, and they like handed me as I was walking out the door, a prescription for some opiate, and I was like, I really don't want this. And they're like, well, you should have it just in case you have the pain. And I was never in anywhere near enough pain to want to take it once. Like there was only once in my life where I got anywhere near, like I had braces when I was a kid, and it did
Oh
hurt. Like
yeah,
they tightened
yeah.
it down one time a lot. And so I got a prescription then, and that was the only time I had it. And I realized after that I should never take it because I'd probably get addicted to it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's
like
not hard.
it's
Yeah.
it's a massive problem. And well, and the thing is, it's really hard to sue drug companies over like all these fentanyl deaths are arguably being caused by people getting addicted to opiates from prescriptions and things like that. And I would argue that is a damage that we should be able to sue for, but it's so hard to sue for that. It's like almost impossible.
It is interesting. So the drug crisis, a lot of it, so like modern medical practices are heavily discouraged in a lot of geographic areas from issuing painkillers. It's very bang bang is what I like to call it. With drug regulations, there's a lot of doctors who flat out won't prescribe pain medication at all to like a damaging degree. But yeah, like you said, like you can look back at the 90s and they're running Oxy ads on TV, and oxycodone is like notoriously strong.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the strongest stuff basically that you can get legally.
right, exactly, and they were running these ads on primetime TV saying, "Oh, this helps with my hip pain." Um, But it's interesting to get back to what Sonic was saying earlier about regulation helping ease illicit drugs. A lot of the fentanyl crisis, especially like around here, I'm in the middle of it geographically, comes down to actually laced drugs, especially
Yeah,
weed
that
is a
too.
big one. Yeah, dealers will lace random things with fentanyl to try and make it more
Sure.
addictive, right? And so,
Yeah.
you have this high school kid who's smoking, some weed he bought at a gas station, and he's thinking, oh, it's weed, it's harmless. And then next thing you know, he's keeled over in his room. Um, so it does touch back on that whole when you force things to, be illicit, you get sort of illicit results. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of kids who've at my school there I mean there's not a lot, but there's been a couple apparently who've died from fentanyl overdoses. So he like it affects even my rural town in Oregon and things like that, which is kind of crazy because like where I work is very remote from any major cities, and there's still people getting fentanyl laced in their stuff, so that happens too,
Mhm.
which is it's honestly wild that like drug dealers have like not cut back or like hey, let's not pour the whole thing of fentanyl in there, maybe like let's sprinkle a tiny bit of it so that they don't OD. And I know that a tiny bit of fentanyl is enough to kill you, but like it's just wild to me that drug dealers are like so literally sociopathic that they just have no empathy and they're like, yeah, we'll just, put as much as we want in there and if they die, they die.
Mhm. No, it's crazy. I had a graduating class of probably what 100 people. And like my senior year, there were like two or three fentanyl deaths in the school. I mean, again, also a rural school. It is a crazy epidemic. And it's very concerning. I don't know how you can live with yourself doing that to random people, because you don't even have the rationalizations of, oh well,
Well,
I'm on the street shooting people shooting at me. You're flat out poisoning people. But
I'm gonna be honest with you, they probably don't even know that their customers died or whatever, because you know it's
maybe.
just how the business is. So you might see someone once or twice in a while, like once every week or so, but like not routinely. Like I don't think
Mhm.
drug deals are as routine as people make them out to be. And I think drug dealers get enough turnover that they may not recognize faces. I
No,
mean, they
absolutely.
I mean, they probably do. Like, uh, there is no universals in anything. I'm sure there are drug dealers that have consistent customers, and maybe they have like a rewards program or whatever. I don't know. But I'm sure that the
Loyalty
majority
point.
of drug dealers aren't like that. Where I think a lot of them are skipping town. Moving from place to place, which is why it's kind of hard to pin them down and things like that. So.
That's true. Yep.
So they may not even know that they killed someone
I
necessarily.
think
Yeah.
I would imagine though it goes part and parcel with saying, okay, well, there's a fentanyl crisis, which everybody knows about. I mean, they're handing out Narcan on the streets for free now. That's at least around here. You can walk into a pharmacy and get as much Narcan as you want,
I've heard
on the
about
house.
inventing
Um,
machines.
yep,
That's crazy.
yep. The universities around here, Narcan in all the dorms. I mean, it's incredible. And that's just the level that it's at. So I feel like that there has to be some level of culpability or not knowing culpability to, be putting this crap in drugs or whatever. Um, when
Yeah.
you know that this is going on, but then again, I
Yeah,
guess
and
money is
that's
a
and
motivator.
well, and that's what I mean by sociopathy because
Mhm.
I like it is one thing to not know if you sold something that killed someone directly, but like you are part of a machine where people are dying after they take drugs that you push and stuff. So it's like,
Mhm.
I do agree, and I would like to have a conversation with them and be like, do you know that do you ever wonder if you've killed anyone? And
You know,
you
I
know,
bet you 2 minutes I could find an interview on YouTube.
Probably.
yeah. Well, I mean, I could just like, so I live in Corvallis, and there's a
Yeah.
giant homeless encampment on Third Street, in between Third and Fourth Street, by a dog park, and I'm sure, like, I'm very sure that the majority of drugs that flow in my area are on that street right now, and that I could probably, not only can I go buy some, but I could probably, like, talk to a couple people, but I don't want to because fuck them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I don't know. But the other crazy thing is that, like, I don't know, like, all these drugs are, we could turn this into an immigration debate, a border debate, but like a
Yeah.
lot of those drugs are flowing like from Mexico and things like that.
Yeah, from cartels, yeah. And
It's just
if
wild.
there's a legalized
Yeah.
market on it, then you can cut that market
Should
for the cartels.
should we classify the cartels as terrorist states or
Yes.
terrorist
I would
organizations?
say no, no,
Well,
not
by
quite.
definition, they are.
No.
I'd say no.
Why?
Really.
I guess for me to classify someone or something as a terrorist, it requires a lot more
Like what?
uh
Like political motivations rather than just business
yeah,
money?
it'd be a lot of political stuff, yeah. Political with a mix of maybe economics of some kind, but not pure economics. Like I know cartels do some political stuff in Mexico, but they don't really do anything politically in the U.S. They solely really focus on the economics in the U.S. I wouldn't quite
Uh,
like. I'm sure we can all agree like the Taliban is like a type of terrorist group or the ISIS, right? But I don't quite put cartels as on that level. Um, they are
Interesting.
bad. They are bad, but I wouldn't quite put them on that same level as like ISIS, Taliban, etc.
So, so the question then is, in order to be a terrorist, because, so you're saying basically terrorists require political motivations to some degree, like
Yeah.
overt political
Mm-hmm.
motivations to, motivate their actions, and cause terror. So my question to you then is, what is political motivation then? Because I would argue that the way the cartels operate in Mexico, at the very least, and
Yeah.
I will say that, I think cartels do also operate in American politics, just not in
Overtly.
quite the same way. But I would say that, well, yeah, well, not covertly, but like it's more like through middlemen of middlemen and things like that. Like, there's, some distance between them and the final person they're
I
trying to
would
get
put
to.
like
Got to maintain
But
that plausible deniability.
political persuasion or
but
whatever.
I do think
Yeah, like political persuasion or
I
whatever.
do think the cartels, I think, I don't think cartels have a political ideology necessarily, like the Taliban, which is trying to, spread Sharia law and all
Mm-hmm.
that. But like, I do think the Taliban does interact in the political sphere, and they are. I mean, a lot of cartels, like the Zetas, for example, Los Zetas, and what was the other one? Maybe it was the Zetas, but like they do act. They basically are like warlords almost, basically, and they
They
are like
literally
de
are.
facto states in
So
Mexico.
the for like the political like movements and stuff in regards to terrorism, I would probably put that as like uh trying to force change through, well, terror, right? So like your specific, like you can look at the Unabomber, right? He could be classified as a terrorist because he tried to, in some cases, push a political ideology by invoking terror within that public. When it came to the Twin Towers, it was the same thing, right? And they tried to force a political change through terror. I wouldn't quite do economics on that same thing because it's a different thing altogether in my eyes.
So let me
Well,
ask you a question. If I hang three cops nude off of an overpass with a sign
and
saying we're
cut their
here,
hands off.
right, saying we're here, don't resist, is that not trying to force, a systematic compliance with my, cartel regime? I mean, you're
Me
No,
trying
me
to.
I wouldn't quite.
Me looking at my
No.
Live Leak history of all the public beheadings and like hangings and like hands stuffed in mailboxes
Well,
and
no.
things
So
like
like
that.
that.
Live Leak has made sure I'm never gonna step foot in Mexico in my life. I mean,
So
Yeah, fuck that.
so
right?
I
My
wouldn't quite.
real quick. My
Yeah.
wait. Pause.
Okay.
My dad last year, after my mom said after my mom filed a divorce, my dad said, "I'm gonna move to Mexico," and I'm like, "Dad, you better bring every fucking gun you own with you because you are gonna fucking need it." He's like, "You should move with me." I was like, "Fuck no, I'm not doing that. Fuck that."
I'll live in some shitty places,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
Mexico
Yes,
is
fuck
no.
that. And he's like, "No, I'm gonna go live in a resort town." I'm like, "They're not gonna let you have guns." And he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Cause they're the cartel. They don't want you to own guns. They want to be able to kill you any day of the week. Fuck that." Anyways,
But yeah.
he hasn't done that.
But
So
Oh, thank God.
I wouldn't
Okay.
quite
yeah.
put those examples as political. Usually they'll only like people who wrong them economically in some way, or have some internal conflict within the cartel, or even other cartels because they tend to damage each other economically. Then they'll have some. They'll do stuff like that. And a lot of times it is law enforcement, but just because law enforcement got hurt in some way doesn't necessarily make it political. There usually has to be like a almost an overt political motivation in regard like uh towards an
Well,
ideology, right?
what? Yeah, I mean, all you're just arguing that because the cartels don't have some sort of political ideology that doesn't make them a terrorist. But I mean, what McGuire and I are trying to say is that they do things, they act in terroristic ways, and
Sure,
they act in terroristic
yeah, they
ways
can
to
act
enact a political will.
they
And just because they don't believe in communism or capitalism
well
or
not a
Senator Armstrongism doesn't make them not terrorists.
not a they can do activities and stuff that can be under a terroristic mindset, but that doesn't necessarily make them terrorists, at least to me. And they don't quite do it for political will, but rather for economic will. The freedom for them to, well, push their drugs or push whatever they want, um, across the border or
I
in their
mean,
internal states.
I mean, by that definition, then communists cannot be terrorists because they are also just trying to enact an economic will, the
But
economics of
when it comes to
Marxism or
hold on, when
communism.
it comes to socialism and communism, there's a it's a social economic thing where it does have a political thing behind it, because they do want to change
Okay.
the idea of how government runs and functions, either through more libertarian or authoritarian means, but they do want to completely change how we run our stuff, not just economically but politically as well. Same thing with like
Okay.
So
I see. Wait.
geoterrorists.
I, I I see what you're saying, and I'd still disagree that just because they don't have an ideology on how society ought to be ordered, that doesn't not make them terrorists. Go ahead, McGuire.
Okay.
I think to take this to the extreme would saying like a utilitarian perspective that okay, well, if I take over this town and I kill all the cops and then I can peddle my drugs to my own benefit, is that not political in and of itself? I mean, that is really a form of utilitarianism. You're maybe not expressly saying that, but it is the result of your actions. It is what you're striving for. Yeah.
Um,
Or they bribe the cops, and the one cop who steps up they murder. To send a message like, if you stand against us, we'll just kill you. Like, I
um,
think that's terrorism.
it could
Mhm.
be seen
I
as
would
a
definitely be scared
intimidation.
after
It'd
that.
be intimidation for sure. But I wouldn't quite as well classify intimidation as terrorism. Um, I don't know. I mean, we both agree. We all agree at least that committing acts of terror and terrorism are bad things, right? Um, Intimidation is generally a bad thing to do. Um, I think we all, for the most part, agree on those kind of things, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the fine line. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think political terrorism is necessarily like it has to do with bombing and murdering or anything like that. I think terrorism in general is just the idea that you're trying to terrorize, intimidate, or force, get people to act in a certain way in order, through violence or coercive means, which is
Yeah.
arguably why the state is a terrorist, group. But that's a different discussion.
Don't let them hear that.
I've literally been saying forever that America was founded by the best terrorist of all time.
Yeah. Tarring and feathering. Gotta scare the tax
Unironically, I mean,
collectors.
they literally tarred and feathers tax collectors and all that. So, like,
Mhm.
unironically.
Mr. Gay Wu Tang said Delta unironically likes Ted Kaczynski. He read the website.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't like his actions. I don't like that he bombed and killed people, but I think I think his idea on, how the industrial society has affected the human condition. I do agree with that, but I don't agree with his idea of like, thus we have to overthrow technology and destroy it and kill people in the process. Like, I'm not down with that.
Yeah. He said so. Delta's a terrorist too.
Well, I haven't mailed any pipe bombs to anybody, so
Not yet.
no, I'm
I'm
not.
waiting for mine. Mine should be coming in next week, right?
I sent it with the Rawls book. I know you haven't read the Rawls book because you haven't opened it up yet.
Oh, I did. There was no pipe bombs, sadly. I was.
Damn.
Anyways,
He would also know that I'm against like political like violence and stuff because literally like everyone else on that list, like freaking whoever wrote, what was his name, Henry David Thoreau, like he was against political violence hardcore. So
supporting his complacency, you should be ashamed.
me.
Apparently,
Okay.
you can't say you're against violence and
Hey,
support
I'm
Wu-Tang is
not.
flying
violence.
off today.
Dang.
I literally said that I'm not cool with how he bombed people.
Anyways, hey, you like my wall?
I Sure, why
Sure.
not?
Why not?
Oh, it's very nice.
It's
It's
very
kind
nice.
of it's kind of dark though. It's hard to see. Oh, you have Funko Pop? Oh.
Pokemon.
Delta's gonna block you now.
It's a lot of Pokemon Funkos.
Uh, I'm sorry that you'll die a virgin.
Dang, you should tell it's my fiance.
Who you've never slept with.
Not yet. Give
You
me another
you
week.
let her you let her boyfriend come over and you sit in the corner while she gets railed out.
Yeah, he sometimes
No, in
rails
the
me, but
closet. Can't let the boyfriend see.
he sometimes rails me while she watches.
Damn.
But
Damn. Damn. Man roasted himself to roast me. Damn. Nah, I can respect that.
yeah,
Hey, you know what? Different strokes for different folks. Sometimes
true.
being the
Different
sloppy
strokes.
second is.
Different strokes. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Anyways, it's been about an hour now.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Yeah, I think we could start slowing it down here. Maybe we could, if we want to put in the topics like more discussion on the drug war or like,
Sure.
political violence and terrorism and all that. I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and we can do that Tuesday because we changed our schedule. Unless
Tuesday.
y'all want to do like
Because
a
I
third
am doing
day.
training.
Unless y'all want to do a third day as well.
No,
No,
no.
it wouldn't
I
kill
mean,
us.
Nope,
well,
it's
okay,
fast.
well, hold on. Maybe because Maddie wants to be on the podcast, and I'm gonna tell her that we talked about weed, and she's gonna be annoyed. So she might come
We can
back
do
and
a
talk about
weekend,
that
right?
because
Are y'all free weekends, like Saturday,
yeah.
Sunday?
Yeah, let me talk to Maddie and see what she says.
Cool.
Because she wants to be on. Oh, well, she might not be able to do weekends because she goes to the fucking Spur every weekend.
Well, you know
She
what?
goes
She can
Friday and
fucking suck
Saturday.
a dick. All right, she can suck her girlfriend's dick or some shit like that, and then she can come on Tuesday or
Damn.
Thursday. But we don't have to do it with her.
He said the C word.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Yeah. Go
I'm gonna
ahead.
tell her specifically that she needs to suck her girlfriend's dick. She'd probably be cool with that, to be honest.
Yeah. She can suck my fiance's dick. I guess. I don't know.
The question is, which girlfriend would it be, Paige or Jamie or Mariah?
All the above. All at the same time.
Oof. Or Riley. Actually, it'd probably be Riley. She'd probably suck Riley's dick.
Dang.
Dang.
All right. Hey, McGuire, what's your media? What book you got?
Oh crap. What did I do last time? I did the elementary surveying book, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's see. I'm a pretty boring individual, so I want to keep up with the boring books. We'll go with the ARRL Handbook for Radio Amateurs, the Standard in Applied Electronics and Communications, 2001 edition.
At least you don't have to
Damn.
read it this time.
Oh, I'd love to read it. This is just such a work of art.
All right, Delta, what's your
Yeah, that's
media?
probably outdated as hell.
What's your media, Delta?
Well, since he brought it up, you should read Industrial Society and its Future by Theodore Kaczynski. Since we're gonna bring up political terrorism,
Okay.
or also
Oh,
as another medium, you should read Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience, which it's funny that inspired Theodore Kaczynski, but it inspired him to bomb people instead of what Henry David Thoreau said, which is civil disobedience, which is you just resist, but you don't do it violently.
I'm not talking to you, Wu-Tang. You fucking cringe.
What is he saying now?
Oh, I will literally spank you. You're being a terrorist again. Why won't Delta respond to me? Is he
Oh,
scared of the truth?
okay. How
My
about hey Wu Tang?
oh
So
no.
on my website, there's a way to contact me. You should do that and contact me through my website and write me an email about why my little peepee is gay. I don't know.
True. And my media is Frostpunk. I had McGuire start playing that. And Minish Cap. Legend of Zelda Minish Cap.
I tried to play Skyward Sword recently and I just can't. It's just too boring. I love
You should play
Zelda,
Minish
but
you
I
should play
just
Minish
can't
Cap.
play
Have you played
Skyward
Minish
Sword.
Cap?
No, do they have it on the Wii U? Because
Um
I have a Wii U.
it is it was on their eShop, which got nuked. It is on
No.
Switch though, if you
But
have a
yeah,
Switch. If you have a Switch, it's on.
oh, wait, wait, wait. Someone put down the topics. Why Zelda is the worst game company on earth.
What you mean,
I I
Nintendo?
I love Nintendo. Sorry, I love Nintendo, but I fucking hate Nintendo with a passion at the same time.
They make amazing games, but their copyright shit's cringe as
They
hell.
they're the worst. They're the worst when it comes to digital rights.
Yeah.
The
They do
absolute
suck.
worst.
They
But
do
yeah,
suck.
anyways, everyone should
In
play
fact, I want to talk
Frostpunk.
about that next Tuesday.
Okay, Frostpunk though.
Okay.
Delta, you should play Frostpunk. Since we're talking about
Okay.
industrialism.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
McGuire, did you ever play it?
Yay.
I did not know that's still sitting in my cart perpetually. Let me
Jesus Christ. It was on sale,
pull
wasn't
that
it?
back up. It's on sale for like a month, I think, if I
Then
remember right.
it's like 5
Um,
cents. Pick it up. Shit.
Yeah, I've just been procrastinating. We're in the middle of final season, so I've been very sidetracked.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead
Yeah.
and end the stream
Go on, Sal.
now.